police in the morning.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another edition of Breaking Badger News. I am your host, as always, the John Diskin Simpsons kin, Max Julius Darrett. And joining me for this particular edition of the series is the Pussycat Punisher and Punster, who is garnered an affinity for nasal dripping, as we were discussing before.
Yeah.
An affinity? No, that doesn't sound right. We're talking about this bug that's been going around. Hannah Wallen. Hannah, how are you doing?
I've got this bug that's been going around.
Yeah.
That's why I sound awful lately, but I don't think it's coming across in the recording, so we're good.
And Hannah was saying something to the effect of, oh, you sound like you've got something. And no, I don't feel like I have anything, but luckily I have a wooden desk right beside me, so I'm just going to be knocking on that throughout the show, so hopefully that doesn't annoy you guys, just be doing this over and over again.
I just knock on my head. It works just as well,
Well, I don't know what kind, I don't know if you've had like brain surgery in your lifetime and they put wood in there instead of metal. That doesn't sound healthy. Anyways, let's talk about a different type of surgery. See what I did there? Okay, so this is kind of messed up. Amazon, the big online distributor, has removed, I can't believe this thing actually exists, circumcision training kits from its website. Dr. Anthony Lempert, chairman of the National Secular Societies, said the following in a letter to the UK Amazon manager, Douglas Gurr, quote, "We fear that the sale of this product may encourage unqualified practitioners to carry out unnecessary surgery on infants in non-clinical conditions, resulting in serious harm." It continues, "Non-therapeutic circumcision is unethical and unnecessary and is putting infant boys at risk of death and serious injury." Now, in case you guys are wondering what this kit looks like, included was a model of a baby's penis, lower stomach, and upper thighs. You could purchase either a dark or light-skinned dummy. It also included 7 different metal utensils, including tweezers and scalpels. What else? There were also refills for baby penises and a carry case for all products included. And in total, it cost about £365. It was listed for at least £365 and a maximum of £456. Dr. Lempert also wanted to remind Douglas Gurr of the following: the fact that the British Medical Association writes in its guidance for doctors that it has no policy on the issue of non-therapeutic or ritual circumcision. My question is, why the hell not?
That's a good point. But you hear that sound? That massive outcry from feminists everywhere over the gendered attack on infant genital integrity. Oh wait, no. There's no massive outcry from feminists about this, is there? Because it's boys that were targeted and not girls.
Wait, hold on. Sorry, I think I hear a little bit of a drone outside. Is that the sound of the Jewish and Muslim communities?
Maybe.
Sorry, I wanted to make sure that we got enough controversy for the comment section when this video comes out.
But it strikes me as being interesting, that if there was something like this that was being sold for practicing female circumcision on an infant girl, there would be massive outrage from everywhere. Feminists would be having a tiz. General society would be upset over it. Everybody would be outraged over it. In fact, the religious groups that practice female circumcision don't do it on infants. Girls have to get older. Not that that makes it any better, but they would be outraged. And of course there would be people accusing the seller and the buyers of carrying basically a facsimile of child porn. And I would say that's not an outrageous complaint at all. Especially since, in addition to being, for practicing something for which there is a particularly disgusting fetish, don't look it up unless you really want to be angry for several days.
Why'd you have to put that image into my head?
Like I said, don't look it up. But they had to make it so realistic that they gave different skin colors. Like, it was going to matter, what skin color the dummy is if you were practicing for something just for it to be a medical procedure.
Mm-hmm.
And why would they need different skin colors if the practice is just for a medical procedure?
I don't know.
Yeah, this blows my mind. But you're right. There should be a policy from the British Medical Association for guidance for doctors on the issue of non-therapeutic or ritual circumcision. The policy should be don't do it. An infant can't consent. Don't do it.
I don't understand why that's so difficult for people to understand. Like, just even before I discovered the whole argument surrounding bodily integrity revolving around circumcision, I always said to myself, I never understand why people do it in the first place. There doesn't seem to be any legitimate arguments for it. And especially, I can't understand why this thing exists. Why the hell are people doing this sort of thing outside of a medical environment? Especially when there is a medical environment where you can make sure that things, if you're going to do this type of stuff, that you can do it in a sanitary environment with a professional who has done it multiple times before and minimize the chance of accidents happening in the future.
Well, and the thing is, even in a medical environment, there's serious problems that can happen with this.
Yeah.
There's about 100 boys a year that die from complications from being circumcised. And of course, circumcision advocates contest this, but the statistics, if you look up the incidence of death following circumcision due to things like infections, it is about 100 boys a year that die from this.
In the U.S.?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I believe it's the U.S. and Canada, but yes, there are about 100 boys a year that die from this. And this is insane. You know, it's not like there's a necessity for this surgery. Even the arguments that are given for the surgery, even the things that are said, this is why you should do this, if they were correct, would not justify doing this surgery until much later in life, when the individual is old enough to make the choice for himself and consent or refuse. And it should be up to the individual.
Yeah, but even then, it's like, why the hell would you want to do it? I don't see what the benefit there is in there. I've heard, what are some of the arguments? Cleanliness? Well, I mean, like, that's something that can be easily remedied. I mean, like, when you're yeah, it's called a shower. I mean, you're an adult. You shower at least once a day. Probably you should, all you musky males that listen to Honey Badger Radio, you should probably be listening. Well, you should probably be listening twice a day, but also cleansing yourself twice a day, because we're all sweaty nerds. But beyond that, I don't see aesthetic. But why would you put yourself through that amount of pain? Although there are Prince Alberts and they're idiots that do that sort of thing.
Here's the thing, though. Who's the aesthetic for?
Right. Exactly.
And if you want to be with someone who loves and cares about you, you might think about choosing someone who doesn't need you to cut off part of your body in order to look good for them. That's another one. This aesthetic argument just blows my mind. I fuck the aesthetic argument. Sorry, but it's absolutely sexist. And on top of that, you have the AIDS argument, and it's been repeatedly demonstrated that that was actually arrived at by cooking the books, and it was in a really stupid way too. Right, so you're going to research whether or not a particular change in a person's body or habits leads to a lower incidence of HIV infection, new HIV infections. So you make this change, and then you advise them not to have sex without condoms in addition to the change, because it's unethical not to advise them not to have sex without condoms, because we all know that condoms create a barrier that helps to prevent the spread of a wide variety of sexually transmitted diseases, and it helps prevent pregnancy.
Yep.
Well, then, how do you know that the change that you made isn't attributable to the newfound condom use?
Yeah, it's almost like, okay, they're trying to put so much importance behind the process of circumcision as if there's not a million other things that you can do to prevent the spread of STDs, condoms being one of them. Right,
condoms are 99% effective. HIV doesn't get through a barrier, and it doesn't survive being exposed to the air. So by the time, you get it out of the condom, if you come into contact with it at that point, it's dead. So you're dealing with something here that is, the research is very badly flawed. On top of the condom issue, there was also the issue of you don't have sex right away after you've been circumcised. But because it would hurt.
Yeah.
But the scientists that were studying this measured that time period too, as part of the time period when, did these new HIV infections happen. Well, obviously, nobody's going to get infected with AIDS if they're not having sex. Unless they're have some other exposure to bodily fluid, they're not going to get infected. Then the other thing is, HIV can hide in your system for 3 years. So if they're not using the most sophisticated testing methods, there could have been HIV infections that they didn't detect. And they didn't continue this testing. They didn't continue this research for years and years. They did it for a set amount of time, and then they stopped. And they got the conclusion they wanted, and they didn't want to study it anymore after that. So there's a whole range of things wrong with those studies. In the meantime, the U.S. Navy has a study that says there is no change in incidence of new HIV infection at all due to circumcision. So that tells you that not only is the study flawed, the original study flawed, but there are studies that contradict it. So why on earth would any medical association, like you've got the British Medical Association doesn't have guidelines. Unfortunately, the American Pediatrics Association does, and they say that the benefits outweigh the drawbacks, where they're citing this flawed HIV research as proof of one of the benefits. Well, the fact is, it's not proof of one of the benefits. When you take that out of the equation, none of the other benefits are enough to even remotely justify cutting off anything. Even the cancer benefit is minuscule. And in addition to being minuscule, it's most of the time when a cancer happens in that particular area, it's caught early because it's a blatant, obvious thing, and it's easily treatable. And it's also something that can be prevented by getting vaccinated against HPV, which is the cause of most cancers in the genital area. So it's everything that is used as medical reasoning for circumcision in infancy, for routine neonatal circumcision, is false.
Yep. You hear the sound of that, ladies and gentlemen? That's the sound of Hannah dropping truth bombs like the 1940s Blitzkrieg. Anyways, that'll do it for us today, ladies and gentlemen. I want to thank Hannah for joining me on such short notice. And also, I want to thank Angron is Angry for bringing this topic to my attention as well as Hannah's attention, and for giving us something to talk about on Breaking Badger News. So, if you like this video, make sure to hit the like button. If you want to see more content like this, make sure you hit the subscribe button. We got tons of great content coming out every single week over here at HoneyBadgerRadio. And also, if you actually have a good argument in favor of circumcision, I've yet to hear one, and Hannah is definitely yet to hear one. Make sure you put it down in the comments below so that we can address it. Or if you have anything else that you want to say about the topic discussed today or our thoughts on it, make sure you put your comments down below as well for that. Anyways, that'll do it for today. Until next time, have a lovely, lovely day.